What is going on, guys? I'm going to talk to you today about something that I know is going to bother a lot of you guys. And that is the idea that dressing well is not the same as playing dress up. Now, I know that those of you who have been following me for a little while are probably immediately going to think, well, Tanner, you did a video about keep playing dress up. And I agree with everything that I said within that video about how it's important that we pay attention to how kids dress aspirationally, and you should continue to dress aspirationally. You should dress in a way that is better than what you are, and you should build up to what that actually communicates about you. I agree with all of those things. What I don't agree with, and what I continue to see time and time again, whether it's on different Facebook groups or forums or even just people that I see randomly, is the idea of basically wearing a costume. Because so much of what I see when it comes to the world of menswear and men's clothing is guys thinking that this means that I need to wear a suit all the time and I need to go back to a different time in history when men always wore this kind of stuff, and somehow if I dress that way, then it's going to communicate dignity and respect and power and manners and gentlemanliness. And you guys all know how I feel about that. If you don't know, go check out this video. But it doesn't work. It doesn't communicate any of those things. It just makes you look like you have no social fluency, like you have no idea that you are living and existing in a different world than everybody else around you. Now, before you guys think that I'm coming down too hard on you, know that I was guilty of this myself. In fact, that's why I chose the thumbnail for this video that I did, because I've been there. When I first started writing Masculine Style about 5 years ago, when I really started diving into dressing better, I was guilty of this. I decided that I was going to dress like it was the 60s. Mad Men was really big at the time, and everybody wanted to be Don Draper, and so, of course, the way that you be Don Draper is to dress like Don Draper. It doesn't matter that you look ridiculous if you're wearing clothing like that now, because it's a costume at this point. And so know that I'm guilty of that. In fact, check out this picture from Christmas from about, 6 or 7 years ago, and you can see all this goofy stuff that I got that really, I don't wear this stuff anymore because it looks like a costume. It really does. In fact, when I see guys post up pictures like this stuff, it's cosplay. You were cosplaying as a gentleman. And I know that that's going to bother some of you guys, but it is. It is cosplay as a gentleman. You're not dressing up as a superhero. You're not dressing up as a demon. You're not dressing up as some other video game character or comic book character. You are simply dressing up as a gentleman. And it doesn't mean that you actually are that. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden we live in this world. Just like if I were to throw on a Spider-Man outfit, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden I can shoot webbing out of my fingers, I can climb up walls, and I have to fight alligators and hobgoblins and other things. Because the clothing is just a component of it. And there are times when it's appropriate to do cosplay. There are times when you can see guys who really put in the time and the effort to do this. Salt Lake has a pretty big Comic-Con, and it happens, I think, twice a year. And for years, when I was working in our downtown store, it was right next to the convention center, and I would see people come by wearing these elaborate and pretty incredible costumes. And that is totally the appropriate environment in which to be doing it. In fact, if I were to show up to a Comic-Con wearing what I'm wearing today, I would look ridiculous and I would stand out, and I would be showing that I don't have any social fluency because I'm not dressing in a way that's appropriate for that event or that tribe. But if you take these same guys and they're wearing these elaborate costumes from, Gears of War or Halo or something else, and all of a sudden you plug them into the office, or it's just a Saturday and they're going out and they're running errands, it's pretty easy to be able to see, okay, buddy, you don't get, you're not a superhero, right? You know you're not Master Chief, right? I mean, that's really easy for us to be able to do when it's taken to that extreme. But when we bring it back a few notches, all of a sudden it becomes really difficult for guys to understand. And you can do the same thing with dressing well or gentlemanly clothing that isn't dressing up like a superhero. For some reason in our heads, it's totally appropriate to dress like it's the 60s or the 50s or the 40s, but nobody's going to go back and dress, unless you get like really weird hipster stuff, nobody's dressing like it's the 1860s, and certainly nobody's dressing like it's the 1760s. And that doesn't mean that you can't appreciate that stuff. My wife and I are watching Poldark, which if you haven't seen that series, it's really good. And it's set after the Revolutionary War, but in England. And honestly, the clothing is pretty incredible. The costumes are really good. I love the way that back during this Revolutionary period, they had really tall collars and it framed their faces really well. And you have cravats as opposed to ties. But I am certainly not going to start wearing that stuff as part of my day-to-day life because it shows that I'm living in a fantasy world. And you can take that back 200 years, and it's really easy to be able to tell that difference. But for some reason, so many guys, as they start this journey of dressing well, and again, I was guilty of that myself, we think that, well, I'm just going to hearken back to this other time period when men were men or gentlemen were gentlemen or any other kind of lofty goal that we have, and I'm going to dress that way without truly understanding that it doesn't work. That human society is always moving in some direction. Some will argue that it's progress, some will argue that it's lateral, some will argue that it's digression. It doesn't matter. It's always moving. And so trying to stay at some steadfast point or trying to go back to some point, I agree with that 100% when it comes to things that absolutely matter that you stand fast on. When it comes to your morals, when it comes to your principles and your values, when it comes to your clothing, absolutely not. There's nothing moral or immoral about wearing a suit, just like there's nothing moral or immoral about wearing a toga or a loincloth or a priest robe or any other thing that has been common for men to wear within certain tribes and at certain points in history. And that's why you can't just play dress up. You cannot just do gentleman cosplay because it doesn't give you any of the advantages that dressing well actually does. I know because I've been there myself. I know because I see it from you guys in forums and on Facebook groups and other places where you get into this echo chamber of all these other guys who you will never meet in person. You all dress up like it's the 40s or some other point in history, and you're all patting each other's back and talking about how good your fit is, but it doesn't progress you in life. If you're getting more compliments from people in a forum than you are in real life, if you're deriving more of an advantage and getting more benefits from dressing the way that you do because of the ego massaging that you get from people online versus the in real life, real world benefits, you're not dressing well. You're just playing dress up. And so think about that as you go about buying new things. If it's not appropriate for you to be wearing any sort of suiting, don't. Just because you think that a trilby is really cool doesn't mean that it is and you shouldn't be wearing it. Don't start doing walking sticks or spats or other weird things that technologically we don't need anymore and socially mean that you just aren't aware of what's going on in the world around you. I'm going to continue to harp on this. I'm going to continue to point it out, and hopefully we can help guys get over this because that is the next evolution. I get that you start here at cargo shorts and everything else, and then you way overcorrect. And whether that's doing custom clothing and it's like, oh, cool, I can change this and that, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to dress up like a gentleman, but you can't stay here. This is not dressing well. Dressing well is coming back to some point where you understand the underlying philosophies and principles, and it's actually making your real life better. I know I'm going to piss a few of you guys off, but this is something that I really believe in, and this is something I'm going to stand behind. Now, if you're interested in learning more about social fluency and really being able to understand what that means, because it's so much more than just your clothing, I encourage you to check out the Odysseus Undertaking. It's an elite group of men that I've assembled together, and we're always looking to have new guys join us, new guys like you, who are interested in developing a better and a stronger presence. Now, clothing is a huge part of that, and clothing is what I spend most of my time talking about on this site, but it's way more than that. It's things like your own perception of yourself. It's your body language, your physical fitness, how you speak, your accent, your pronunciation. It's how well you can communicate with other people and whether or not you know how to have conversations, eye contact, all of these other things that go into having a strong presence so you can command a room if you want to, but even if you don't want to do that, just so you're not a doormat for other men, or frankly, just somebody that other people are uncomfortable being around. Because as much as you can have good aspirations, you can have strong morals, if you make other people uncomfortable being around you, or if you just have people feel neutral when they're around you, you're not taking advantage of as many opportunities as you can, and you're not getting as many opportunities as you can. So if you're interested in checking that out, I've got a link up here for you guys. As always, please leave me a thumbs up. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say on this, and I will catch you on the next one.